In the spring of 1997, three former college track athletes worked to realize their dream of creating an opportunity for area youth to learn the sport of track and field. Robert Allen, Chevalier Lee, and Carl Painter, in collaboration with the Doris Miller Community Center and the C. Waldo Scott Center for Hope, created an organization that will positively influence hundreds of area youth. This is the story of the East End Flyers Track and Field Club. Over the years, the program would grow and provide lessons beyond just track and field. The first year saw 12 young athletes ranging in age from 6 to 13 years old. At the time, there were probably only 3 or 4 other AAU and USA track and field clubs competing in local track meets against each other and in local district and state Hershey track and field competitions. In the early years, practices were held at Huntington Middle School, and there were only a few meets each season. Most of them were all-comer meets where anyone who paid an entry fee could run, and the races were held at Jeff Davis Middle School in Hampton. Meet entries were about $6 and done by hand, then delivered in advance of the competition to the meet's director because there was no Coach O. Over time, the team would grow beyond its founding members. It would have several different coaching staffs. It would develop an auxiliary support group known as the Booster Club. It would fundraise to support team competition and travel expenses, provide athletic scholarships to children in need, and provide holiday food baskets to needy families. It would field teams as large as 80 athletes, compete in many states across the United States, have several athletes achieve All-American status, and watch several more athletes go on to have successful high school and collegiate careers. Throughout it all, the Flyers have remained true to its original mission to develop youth in the sport of track and field, expose them to opportunities they may otherwise not have, teach them life lessons that will help them be successful, and give back to its community.
History of the Flyers started in 1997. Myself and Carl Painter worked for the city, Newport News, Parks and Rec, and we thought it was a good idea to start a track team because at that time we were just all from basketball and football. So we came together, we sent out a couple of announcements, seeking coaches, and then Chevalier, she got a hold of us, and then we brought her in along with Doug, and the 4 of us started the team. Our first couple of meets were Hershey track and field meets, which Carl Painter was the co-person for this area rep here in Newport News, Virginia. So we did that for several years, and that's particularly where most of our athletes came from. And then probably in '98 is when we filed for AAU and USA, where we had to travel to Richmond to hand you the cards and stuff like that, so for AAU membership and USA membership. And from there, we just expanded each year. We started off with roughly 12 athletes the first year and just expanded from there.
Obviously, you all made a good impression on the community because people started hearing about the Flyers, and that's what everybody wanted to do, right?
Oh, yes, we did. We did a lot of advertising with the city. Working with the city, we had access to put the Flyers at the city hall down in the mailboxes. We utilized the city channel to get most of our publicity out there and stuff, advertisement out there. So, and it went well.
At the time, what was track like in this area? Was it just a few teams, or?
It was a few teams here. It was growing as well, a growing sport that was kind of hidden. A lot of people didn't know too much about it, and Hershey was our main exposure. And that's pretty much how we really got a lot of athletes out there from Hershey. That way. Then a couple of teams that was already out, and we kind of joined them, did some local meets at Jeff Davis Middle School, right behind the all-comer meets, is what you want to call them. So we paid like $1, per athlete, and then we came out there and just ran out there until most of the meets got more, until most of the meets started getting popularized around the area.
So back then, you weren't going to the Junior Olympics, it was just mainly local?
It was mainly local. The furthest we went out was Charlottesville, and that still was a Hershey meet that we went up to and did the regions up there. of the UVA.
And then Calvin and Van, you all came along how many more years later?
So I'm gonna let Van speak on that because she actually joined the team before I did. So
Yeah, I came on in 2001 is when I joined the team, and they have already had about 25 or more athletes on the team at that time, and practice was at Todd Stadium. And we had about 8 coaches at that time. Mm-hmm.
Wow. With 21 kids, 8 coaches. Wow. Okay. I mean, what was it like at that point? I mean, was it, how would you describe the competition?
It was competition as far as from an athlete's point of view was very tough. Within our local area, we have some exceptional athletes, and it was tough competition within our own local region. As you can see in basketball and other sports as well. But the region that we had was so big. When we branched out and went to regionals, it was even tougher because we had harder states to compete against, like Delaware, Maryland, and Pennsylvania. And so it made it even tougher for us. I mean, we were very competitive in the sense of we could hang in there with them, but getting certain athletes to the next level, which is Junior Olympics, it was difficult for us. We were getting like 6th, 7th, and 8th place, and they were only taking the top 5 at that time.
Okay, so you were competing against more states back then.
Oh yeah.
The
region was much larger.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Back then, it was about competition. The region for AAU, our region consisted of Delaware, some parts of Jersey, Pennsylvania, Maryland, and Virginia. And then when it came to USA, our region was Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia. And obviously when you combine all those states together, I mean, obviously, especially when you're talking about down south, the competition is just so hard. But even though we had a lot of disappointments, we had a lot of times when kids get 6th, 7th place. But really, that's just the art of competition. You train hard and you believe in yourself, but you're not always going to make that mark. But I feel that the program was doing great things back then. And I think that the kids, even though there was a lot of disappointments during those times, I think they really grew because they knew the work ethic that it was going to take to overcome and try to progress and get to Junior Olympics with all these different regions and states that we were competing with at that time.
At that point, when you were working with the kids, were you just doing it, or were you thinking about what you were actually building? The legacy that you were creating at that time, and what the Flyers would become later on?
Yes, so
That's a good question.
It is.
I mean, for me, I would go just 1 year at a time. Each year, it was something different. A different group of kids that come in, with different talents. We took that group, we molded them, we trained them, and we went on, to compete, and do good things. Like as we said, it was hard breaking that barrier, getting to the next level. But some of the kids we had before, each year we get closer and closer, until we really hit that mark.
Yeah, and I say for us, I mean, one thing I can tell you with the coaching staff is that we were really on one accord. There were times where obviously we didn't agree with everything, but we always were able to come together and come to a consensus. But I think having that strong coaching staff and the belief system that we had, I think really that bettered the program, because in the end what happened was each year we would talk at the end of the season, and as coaches we would address the mistakes that we made in our training and things of that nature, and then we would take those mistakes and say, okay, well, how can we improve the next year? A lot of times when you have teams, sometimes we want to blame the athletes, and that really wasn't the case for us. We always did ourselves first, and we tried to figure out what could we do amongst ourselves to make the kids get better. You know what I'm saying? So there were definitely mistakes that we made as a coaching staff, and I can tell you that because of the meetings that we had after the season, I think that's where the program really grew, because we were actually learning from the mistakes we made ourselves. So the program really was growing, because of the coaching staff knowing that we don't know everything. So, it took us, talking to other coaches, going to clinics and things like that, gaining knowledge that way. And from that knowledge that we gained, it allowed us to do different things, and then allow the kids to, train them different, and get them to a different mind frame where, hey, their body is literally in the shape it needs to be in to run a specific event, and they're more prepared to perform at a high level.
Well, when did the team, because you're talking about how you were learning from your mistakes, and at what point would you say the team started to evolve and become, more like a family? More like, we don't just care about how you run, it's about who you are. And, where did that come from? How did the Flyers manage to stand out as that kind of a team?
I think personally, coming in in 2001, that it was already established in the founding principles of what Robert and Chevalier and Carl and Doug had already established, that their philosophy was to develop underprivileged children holistically and not just athletically, as a whole person. And so once you come out on the track field, there are certain expectations that you have to meet. We held a high standard. And so with that, when you hold student athletes to high standards, that's what they want to do. Children aim to please. And so I think from that philosophy of developing student athletes, just kind of evolved into the family, because it was extended, because that's where it starts. It starts from having high expectations and setting standards to where, not only on the field but off the field, you are viewed as an individual who represents this team. And so therefore, not only are you representing this team, you're representing your mom and dad, your community, and it just kind of expanded from that, the mission statement of the Eastern Flyers from the beginning.
Yeah, and I'll expand on that, because when I came on in 2003, obviously I knew Robert, because Van and I went to college with Robert. I knew of Carl and Chevalier. But when I came in as a coach, it was like open arms. Carl Chevalier took me in as if I had been one of them for years. So that family aspect that Van's talking about is very true, because not one time did I feel like an outsider when I first came in. Carl, I wanted to learn from what he already knew about the sport, and I was trying to learn from him what he already knew and what I knew, and I was just trying to find my way into where I would fit in the program. But Carl made it easy, because once we sat down and talked and we exchanged ideas and knowledge of the sport, he just made it easier, to allow me to be myself. So the family atmosphere has been there, I would say, since inception. Yeah, really. And I think from inception, though, it just grew stronger.
You go ahead.
Yeah, developmental. That was an idea we came up with, developing athletes, because down in the East End community, it was a hidden gem. You just had to get them and bring them in and introduce them to the sport and train them. Because some of the kids had talent already. You can see it in some of the games and stuff that we played and stuff like that. And that's pretty much how we got our athletes, just based off of just doing various recreation games. You see it. It's like, okay, well, we got a track team. Why don't you come up to the track team? And the kids brought in, and we brought them in, and we trained them that way. We taught them how to run, that way, the proper technique, that way, and build them from that point on up. And the family atmosphere, it just came from, like they said before, something we instilled in the beginning, because there's been times where we had to pick the athletes up in the vans, take them to track meets, bring them home. So some days it was 5 o'clock in the morning to 10 at night, but those families trusted us, with the kids.
Our discipline that we had with the kids was, it was no joke. We had, the kids were disciplined, because that's what we, demanded of, that's what we commanded But we knew that if we were stable as coaches and we were structured, then that would make for a better team. And especially when you're talking about taking 60 athletes. As we grew later in the year, taking 60 athletes. Matter of fact, I think the most we had was 80.
It was
80 athletes at one time. And you're talking about going to a meet with 80 kids. And you're talking about, how 80 kids, obviously you could have, 30 something, kids that are really hyperactive and stuff, so running around. And, we just wasn't going to accept that. So there was a standard that we had to uphold in practice to let the kid know that, look, this is how we act in practice and in the track meet.
I remember one towards the beginning, y'all saying to me, we don't curse at the kids, but we yell at them.
Yeah. But you know what? I'm gonna be honest with you. I'm gonna be honest with you. My 10 years, I cursed one time at Junior Olympics, and I remember the specific scenario. But no, we took pride in not cursing at the kids. Now, whether the kids at home and they hear it at home, that's just another story. But we really didn't want the kids we didn't want to be those type of coaches to curse at them and degrade them, things of that nature. But we definitely got on them. We yelled at them and stuff and encouraged them. When they had to be, when we had to get on them about certain things that they need to get better at, we told them. But at the same time, when they were doing things that, that we felt needed encouragement, we would encourage them. We say, hey, great job, you did this. And so it was just a great atmosphere. And I think the best thing that we hear is years after when you see kids now and they talk about their experience with the Flyers and how it was that family atmosphere. And a lot of these kids had never left Newport News. A lot of these kids had never left the city of Newport News. And so you're talking about kids that's qualifying to go to North Carolina and South Carolina and Delaware and Detroit and Tennessee and Iowa, and next thing you know, they're going from Newport News, Virginia, the East End, Midtown, Uptown, to Des Moines, Iowa, to Detroit, Michigan, or Eastern Michigan University, and all these different places, and they had never seen anything outside of potentially Newport News or Hampton.
Yeah. Would you say you're still, the team in the latter years still producing top athletes, or did losing that competition affect the quality of
Well,
I don't think so. I think we're still producing the same quality of athletes, that way. It's just giving us, a little bit more exposure, put our talents out there in front of other clubs and stuff like that to get recognized, that way. So we have plenty of kids now that's in high school now that's doing exceptional stuff, and they're just coming up through the program from 5 up until to get to high school. So it's about progression and stuff. So.
And competition, you got to be careful with it. Competition is great, but when you break down everything that a coach tries to do with his athletes, we ask the athlete to do their best in practice, to train hard. To not back down from that pain that they experience, that physical pain. So when you look at that and you're asking them to train so hard in practice, right? Then when it gets to the meet, the icing on the cake is to have competition. But you're not training hard in practice to only run fast when you have competition. You're training hard in practice, so when you step on the track, you're gonna perform at a high level. So the competition is a huge piece, but it's a mental. We tell the kids all the time, 80% mental, 20% physical. And the kids look at you like, Coach, what are you talking about? Like, no, my body hurts, But the thing about the body is, and the mind, is that the body has no choice but to follow what the mind tells it. And this is the way it is. So we try to instill that in practice, so that way the kid would know that, hey, if I experience this threshold of pain in practice and I learn how to push through it, when I get to the meet, my body's not gonna shut down on me because I've actually learned how to push through it in practice. You see what I'm saying? So it's one of those things where you have to, we call it little things, but it's really big things. Because the mental of any sport is where you really, get to the top. I always say that the difference between the good athlete and the great athlete is the mind.
Our main motto was big time. Believe in yourself, have the integrity to believe in those, and set goals. So within big time, we always had minor mottos that were like, I can, I will. Just building that inner confidence for those individuals who may not have been as successful naturally as others. And so what we focused upon on the track is that we have high expectations, but we want you to make your personal record better, which is a PR. We want you to get better each meet. And so instead of win, we push break your personal record, break your personal record. And so as you saw, the young ladies, or even the young men, but the young ladies in particular, as they met those particular goals that they had for whatever event they were running, it increased their confidence. Certain words and phrases were not allowed on the track. Negativity was not allowed on the track. And I think that particular atmosphere and the acceptance of the athletes wanting to be better and being in a positive atmosphere kind of rubbed off on them. So when we weren't around as coaches, they were still simulating the things that they learned on the track. You know, they didn't want to be around negativity. Why are you talking like that? And they would encourage each other even in our absence.